loneliness, silence, anxiety. Too many men are carrying it alone. I'm Jack Starr, powerlifter, personal trainer, aerialist, and ex-private investigator, and this is The Other Side of Tough. We're rewriting manhood one conversation at a time, and today I have with me a social media influencer, a body energetics facilitator, an international inspirational speaker, a mother, a wife, a grandmother, my friend, and personal mentor, the great Sarah Grandinetti. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. That was very, very sweet introduction.
Oh, well, I got to say, um, a lot of this podcast is thanks to you and the belief that you've given me and myself. I remember when you were first my personal training client, and I was doing some research on you, and I was seeing all the social media influence you had. I saw the international travel speaking at seminars. And I was like, wow, how does she do it all? Like, you really inspired me. And I remember just going up to you and asking you, I'm like, I would like to expand in the personal or the fitness world a little bit. And you just told me directly, you're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I kind of want my own exercise program. And you're like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay. And I kind of took it with a grain of salt because I've been in LA for 15 years. And these type of things I've, auditioned for, I didn't get. And I just didn't think, maybe I'm just not worth it. Maybe I'm just not worthy of it. But then in 2 weeks' time, you came back and you're like, we're doing a commercial. And you had your team do this amazing commercial. And I was like, wow. I was just blown away by how you could take an idea and put it into action within 2 weeks. And then we did wonder workouts together, merging our two, body energetics and exercise. And it was amazing. We were channeled to internationally. We had interpreters in 5 different languages, and the reviews were great. And it really came at a time of my life when I was really doubting myself, and it made me have belief. And so with this idea of the podcast of manhood and wanting to talk about, the challenges we face as a man that I've faced, going into my 40s, just realizing my manhood, I was like, this is something that I want to discuss. And instead of those limiting beliefs that I've had before, where it's like, well, someone else can do it better, or maybe I'm just not worthy of it. I remember you and you just being like, let's do it. And I was like, what would Sarah do? And she would just do it. And that's why you were the first person I reached out to when I came out with this idea, and you invited me over to your home. You helped me come up with the logo, the name of the podcast, the intro, the outro, all the nooks and crannies, and you really helped me go through it. So, I say there's 2 types of people that come into your lives. There's the people who are lessons and the people who are gifts. And you, my friend, are a gift, a true gift to me, and I appreciate you. And with that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your personal journey and how you've come to have all this success in your life?
Well, I mean, if I can talk now, because now I want to cry. Well, much like you, Jack, I actually might cry.
Oh, do it. We're here to be vulnerable.
Right? Much like you, I was like, it felt like I was trying everything. I owned a salon in Los Angeles, and I was like climbing the ladder to get that going, and it just kept feeling like I would hit something and just never would get there, and same thing. I'm like, maybe I'm not supposed to have the success I always desired. Maybe, I'm not worth it. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe like all this self-judgment and self-talk of just constantly keeping myself down. And, I always say, we're our greatest critics, right? And if you just change just that one thing in your whole life, like your whole life will change, just how you talk to yourself, and so my change came from actually hitting a wall financially, like a big wall financially. I had 4 kids, And I like woke up to an email from my husband one day, and he just said, "Hey, I made some mistakes with the money," or he like created a mess, and he had been hiding it from me to try to fix it, and he couldn't hide it anymore. And it just meant basically what it looked like was that all accounts were in the red, so they were in the negative. No, like all of our cards were maxed, and our mortgage hadn't been paid, and our cars were getting possibly repossessed, and I had 4 kids to feed. But there's nothing like I say this all the time now, and I remind myself all the time, and I just want to put this in here while it's like fresh in my head, is that when you are approaching some of the most difficult challenges in your life, like just on the other side of it is a level of strength and growth that you did not know you had before you walked through. And so when stuff shows up for me now, I'm like, all right, what's show, like my point of view changed about it, because it truly changed my life. And it was one of the lowest moments. So I took, like, I grabbed myself, like pulled myself up by my bootstraps, like my grandma would say. And I called my older brother, who he has been doing this consciousness work for many years at that point, like 15 years. And he'd always been inviting me to it. But I kept, like, I thought it was too weird. Like, I was one of those. I was like, I don't do the woo-hooey, like, I'm not an energy person. But he was the only person in my life that like had created a life worth like looking at and living, so I like knew that he was someone that I could turn to. And he's like, well, there's these tools and you could use them. And so just as like almost like a poke at him to be like, I'm almost going to prove to you that your silly little tools aren't going to work for me because I'm so fucked up, started using the tools. And within 3 months, someone who I've been with my husband since I was 19. I was 35 at this point, and I'd never ran my own finances. I even in my salon, like my salon manager and like would run it, and then I would take my paycheck home to my husband, paycheck, but like my draw for my husband. I took over all the finances, and with 3 months, we had $1,000 in savings.
Wow.
All the bills caught up, and $1,000 at that time, it might have been $1 million. It might as well have been $1 million, because we were always paycheck to paycheck. And I was like, wait a minute, these tools might work. So I went on the journey, and I was like, okay. He goes, well, are you going to start facilitating these classes? And I was like, all right, let's try this on. And I haven't looked back since, and my whole life is completely different. That's my journey.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And like I said, it's inspiring people, and it's inspired me. And like I've been through, the dark journey. I've been divorced. I've witnessed tragedies. I've lost friends. And this all happened within, a couple of years' time. And, going through that dark journey, you don't see light. And that's probably the scariest part, is that you don't see the hope or the light. But the only way, and you feel lost. But one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older is that being lost isn't a bad thing, isn't a panic thing, because when you're lost, that's when discoveries are made. Mm-hmm. And, me going through this dark journey, I would start seeing a little bit of a light, little bit of a light, little bit of light. And as closer and closer I got to that light, I realized that light was always just within myself. It was a journey within myself, to find that strength and to knowledge that you can do anything. And you really possess that, that indomitable spirit that, don't tell me I can't do something, because I will make it happen. And you've proved it to me many a times. So that's absolutely amazing. Do you have anything going on right now that you're, currently involved in?
Oh, I mean, my business is ever evolving. I just rebranded and retargeted my business. Before I go there, though, can I add something to what you just said?
Yeah.
Because that dark journey, which it even just like the energy of the words, right? It's this dark journey, right? And
yeah.
And like you said, like going through that, you started to see a little more light and a little more light. And what I can say is that often when you are feeling lost, it's when you're willing to ask for directions. And so if you're not lost, you keep going down the same path, making the same choices, having the same result, ending up at the same place and wondering why why your life isn't changing. And in that analogy, so if you're like driving through, a place in your car, like let's say you don't have your navigational system, which start running your life by your awareness, that's your navigational system, but that's the topic. But when you're lost is when you'll pull over and ask for directions, right? I don't think where you're going. And to me, that is actually like in this metaphor, that's asking questions, period. We go to ask questions when we think we don't know. And the turning point is when you ask questions, even when you think you know. So curiosity is literally what started to change my life, because I was like, wait a minute, nothing's like wrong right now. So we always try to look for it. We go to change when something's wrong. But if nothing were wrong in order to promote you to the next possibility, and you're just going, okay, now what else? What else can I create? What else is possible? How else can I make this work? Or how can I make this grow bigger? Not from there having to be a problem, because we're really, really good at creating a problem in order to get to the next level. And if you never had to do that again, you're like, just your mind will like blow what's actually available. So with that said, to your question, I just retargeted my whole business to the 5 elements of intimacy: honor, trust, allowance, gratitude, and vulnerability. And they really are that guiding light for anything and everything in your life. And if you really start to understand each of those elements and how to integrate them into your life with you, like you said, like that light inside of you that everybody's seeking outside of them, the space of how magic and miracles start to show up for you and doors open without you even knocking, it's like wild. So my whole business is going towards that, and we just kind of launched that this week.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I like going on off what you said, when we have those chaotic moments that happen, instead of approaching them as things that are happening to us, the enlightened person sees them as opportunities. It's like, oh, I'm going to need to pivot here to go where this is going and see where this is going, instead of fighting against it and going by my old ways. Because you never make progress that way.
Yeah. Oh, amen to that. 100%. And I think one of the things, the perspective shift for me with that whole always happens to me, because that was like, you might as well tattooed that on my forehead. I'm like, victim, like I was captain victim mentality. But what I realized is that there's so many things that I would try to control out of existence. So something starts to happen, it's not fun and light and airy, and I'm like, and I start freaking out and start pulling in everything I can to control the circumstance. And what I found is that the universe really has to rearrange a lot of things to get you what you desire. And sometimes it has to crash down, like a marriage, a job, a business, for you to go, oh shit, there's something else available. Because we get really comfortable. The house I live in today on the hill, for example, you've been to my home. I used to drive by it to my previous home that I lived in Sun Valley. So I live in Burbank on the hill. And I would look up at the hill for like probably 5 straight years. Every time I drove by, I'd be like, I want to live up there someday. But in my head, it meant I had to save, so much for a down payment. I had to, like, it was an impossible ask, but I would still ask every day. The way I got here, I won't bore you with the story, even though it's a good one. All of my kids got kicked out of private school on the same day. Like, they were mad at me. Yeah. So they kicked out all of my kids. All 4 of my kids were in the same private school, high school, high, elementary, and preschool. It's all like, it was all one school. And we were paying a lot of money to put them in private school because where we lived didn't have good public schools. So that was heart-wrenching. I caused, because I went and like lit some fires in the principal's office because of something that happened. They were like, oh, we have a choice. We just kick you guys out. And so my kids were devastated. They were on sports teams and they were cheerleader. My oldest was a cheerleader in high school and like all sorts of stuff. They weren't going to see their friends. I was just like, kids who were so upset, and I just felt like the worst parent ever. And guess what? When we looked at all the money that we were going to save on private school, if we just moved into a neighborhood that had great school district, I ended up on the hill. And I will never forget that, because I wouldn't have just chosen it because I was comfortable what I was paying where I was living. I wouldn't have just gotten up and been like, I wouldn't have. Sarah now would, but the Sarah then would not. But if you fuck with her kids, So, you know what I mean? So like the universe knows how to come in and
So
go,
much
"Oh,
drama there.
I'm going to stir this pot exactly where you need it stirred." So you'll make the choice for the thing that you actually desire that you're not choosing on your own. So when something happens, whether again, it's like can be a relationship, it can be financial, it can be in your business where it looks like everything's falling apart. It might be that more things are coming together for you, and having that trust and walking through it with that peace and that awareness that something greater is happening is one of the like the world changing realities that you can choose.
Yeah, and I think a lesson from that too that I would pick up on is that, never dim yourself. Always take up space. Always stick by your guns and your integrity. And like you might suffer consequences, like all your kids getting kicked out of school or whatever. But at least you didn't stay quiet and let that burn you up inside and being like, I didn't stand up to it. I didn't do it. But you did take the risk. And yeah, I mean, it was a little bit devastating, but it led you to something better. And I think life does that. It makes you make those tough choices to stand up for yourself and what you believe in.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So this is a man's podcast. So I've got to ask you, you are a mother, wife, grandmother to a beautiful grandson, and you work with many men with what you do. You're a boss of many men, and you help, you have many customers, people that seek you out for advice as men. What do you think are the biggest challenges for modern men today, and how us as men in generality, from a woman's perspective, can we do better?
Big question there, big guy. Well, I think the great, like my brother wrote the book called Being You Changing the World. And what he quotes in that book, one of my favorite quotes out of that book is that one of like the greatest toxicity on planet Earth is judgment. And that unfortunately, men have had to be the recipient of the judgment that the women's movement created. I have a lot to say on this topic, so I don't know how long you have, but I have a lot to say.
Go, please.
So I have one class that I facilitate that's women only, and we actually spend a lot of time getting women out of the judgment they have of men that might not have ever been theirs. Like it was like handed down. Like a lot of men / women are raised by women who don't like men, like just got married because they wanted babies and they just don't like men for whatever reason. And we pick up on those energies, how mom talks about dad, how mom reacts to dad. Women grow up with like the new era, what you're talking about. The toxicity is our points of view that we just develop and think are just real and true. And how many women, treat men as just like a paycheck or a, something. There's a whole society out there that's just looking for a, what do they call it? A provider man. Like they don't even care. Like they just, what's your bank account? You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways. And I am not saying that this isn't one way, because we can also look at how women are demoralized and judged and whatever, but we're on a male perspective podcast. So I think what's going on in the world right now is, I think we have failed to create amazing leaders, for men to look up to.
Yes.
My brother, I'm a big fan of his, if you can't tell. His name is Dr. Dean.
I am too. I watch his stuff on Instagram, and he's very wise. Yeah.
So he wrote a book called Return of the Gentleman. And I actually, when I see you, I have a copy for you.
Thank you. Yes.
And it's all like he talks about how like there aren't role models for men in modern day right now, like that are just, either it's cloaked in like a religion that people aren't aligning with the belief system, or we're looking at athletes, or we're looking at, we are not looking at politicians. I'll say that much. The world leaders that like, who do you look to as a young man? And so there's all of this stuff going on. But what I encourage women to do, so I'm going to speak to your women audience right now, is just to get vulnerable with your points of view about men. Like they probably aren't even yours. I say all the time that like, we're hiding things that we have from ourselves for us to change it. But a lot of times when you pull it up and you look at the points of view you're creating from, you're like, oh my God, I bought that from mom, that from grandma, from TV, from, you know, like whatever. And you go, none of that is actually true for me. So you don't have to hide it, you know, and you can change it if you're willing to look at it. So a lot of us women are carrying their own judgments of men and this idea that men have to be a certain type of strength or a certain archetype, you know, in order to fit into the box of what they would choose. And if not, then men are the enemy or they are wrong, just period, like just wrong just for being a man. You know, I think my brother did a joke like, if a tree falls in the forest, are men still wrong? You know? You know? And so like walking women out of that where they start to have these epiphanies of the beauty and the vulnerability and the deliciousness of like a kind, potent man, you know, and that then they start to find these men when they don't have the point of view that they don't exist. So women are walking around going, there's no such thing as a good man. They don't exist. They're all cheaters. They're all this, they're all that. Your point of view creates your reality, not the other way around. So if you think there are no good men, guess what you're going to meet at the bar? The no good man. You know, on Tinder, you're going to meet the guy who's going to confirm your point of view to you. If you walk out the door every morning going, wow, men are beautiful. Not all of them. Yes, there are assholes out there, but men are beautiful creatures and I'm here to support them and create with them and contribute to them and receive from them. You will find so many beautiful men. Literally, Jack, the reason you're in my life is because I went on a website on how to find personal trainer and I was just scrolling and truly asking questions like, who is kindness? Because where I was with what I wanted to create with my body at the time, I just wanted somebody who was going to receive me and be kind. And immediately I saw you and I was like, that's my guy. And the moment I met you, I knew that I had chosen from the energy, not from who has the, you know, you have great muscles, but like, you know, there's like the big beefcakes that you decide are like, oh, they're more valuable because they've hit this. It wasn't that. It was like, I was really choosing from the energy. And I'm so grateful that worked out that way. Cause now I have a friend in my life that is a beautiful man. But my point of view is not that men are awful, bad, mean, and wrong. It's that they're a gift. So I'll find the gifts, even if it's in picking a personal trainer.
Oh, now you're going to make me cry. Now you're going to make me cry. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you mean so much to me. Like I said, you have really inspired me to be a better man. You know, so getting to being a better man, you've already mentioned one of your male role models, which is your brother. But who are your male role models? This is a three-part question. Okay. Who are your male role models? What kind of traits of masculinity do you find that resonates with them? And which one of those traits do you want to see your grandson grow up with?
Well, in your the form that I filled out, I put my brother, but interestingly enough, I don't know if it's a role model for me, but I would actually list my son on that list.
Oh.
Because what my son does is he has, first of all, he has a sense of himself. So one of the values, like, and it's not, we're all finding ourselves all the time. Like, I know more about me today than I did yesterday. And I surprised myself even today, you know? So if we're on that path, then awesome. It's not like you arrive somewhere, but somebody who knows their value and doesn't have to prove it or force it onto you. So if I walk in a room and I just know I'm valuable, I can be vulnerable, and your points of view don't have to reflect anything about me, and I can receive you in any form that you show up in because I already know my value and my worth. And one of the things I'll say about my son is that he's very empathetic, which can be a little bit of a danger zone because empathy is about like actually feeling someone else's emotions, right? Is different than empathy. With sympathy, you actually can be a bit condescending because you like sympathize with someone rather than empower them.
Yeah, you're taking a point of looking down upon, where empathy is you're taking a point of equality, actually living that person's life. Yeah.
And but my son has such a great awareness of like where everybody's at and what they require. And does he wobble sometimes? Absolutely. He's like not even 25 yet. He'll be there in December. But
amazing.
He's a man of honor. He cares about his word. He still finds his words. You know, there are times when I'm like, did you mean to say that to me? You know what I mean? But he has a depth of caring for those that are, you know, important to him. And I think that's amazingly valuable. And he's always working on himself. And I think that that's also beautiful. I mean, the list of things that you could put on, you know, what you hope your grandson shows up as, like, if I could say anything about having been able to raise my kids with the tools I live by, because I'm like working on my parenting book this and getting it out this year.
What's that going to be called? Do you have a title?
There's a working title. It's called
Okay.
Being You, Being with Them.
Okay.
So like when you're being you, you can be with them in a totally different way. But it's, my kids have, like, people say this all the time. They come to my house and they're like, why are your kids so different? You know, and I'm like, they have such a sense of themselves. Like, I don't parent from, and that was, I think, part of a conversation. Some of the thing I filled out in your form too is most parents are parenting from fear, which creates control, and they do it in the guise of caring. And so another thing that happens is when you care so much about someone, whether that is your child or someone you're in a relationship with, if men aren't taught that they're trustworthy, and then they don't trust anyone else. And so they can do control from a place of such intense caring. And then they're like, oh, you're so controlling, blah, blah. But no one's broken it down for them that they were raised often from controlling parents who cared so much they didn't know what to do about how much they care. So they controlled everything. They controlled your every choice. They controlled, you know, when you could go and when you could leave and what you could wear and how you should talk and how you should present. And they tried to control the environment because it's something so precious to them. So in raising my kids, I've taken my hands off and put the trust in them. I'm like, you don't need to follow my awareness. I will give it to you. I will have your back, but you will learn from every choice. And so they're so much more present with what choices they make. And then we talk about the choice. So if something shows up that doesn't work out, like, we'll sit down and I'm like, even when they were little, like, I'm going to we'll put a little thing in the middle of the table and I'll be like, okay, this is the choice, not you made a wrong choice, but ask my kids, hey, okay, so this is the choice you made to not do your homework and now you're in trouble, whatever, right? I'm like, okay, so what did the choice create? And they'll be like, well, I got in trouble with my teacher and now, you know, I have to do extra homework or whatever. I'm like, okay, how did the choice make you feel? Well, I feel kind of like a loser. You know what I mean? I feel bad and wrong. I'm like, ooh, that choice. So what are we going to choose next time? And then they go, oh, probably to do my homework. Okay, cool. Awesome. Bye. High five. There's no need. Like, I have a course on my website called Conversations Over Consequences, because when you can have a conversation with somebody and they can look at a choice and go, oh, I don't like that at all, I'm going to choose different. They've now encapsulated that awareness as part of them. And now they move forward. Most parents are like, do your homework, go make your bed, do your thing. Like, here are the rules. And then everybody's in a controlled environment. They're not actually expressing. So when I look out to that bigger question, like, I would love for my grandson, and he's living with me right now, which has been a huge gift. Like, I do my best.
Horrible, by the way. When I saw the photo, I was like, oh.
He just turned, and he's so smart. And I just have conversations with him as much as I can. Hey, what did, like, if he has to do a timeout or something, you know, I'm asking him like, hey, how did that make you feel? Like, what did you choose that created this? And, you know, and he'll verbalize to me back. Like, he threw my his mom, cell phone off of the second story balcony the other day. Like, hey, dude. Yeah. But I didn't have to say you're wrong, you're bad, because that's that internal voice, that voice that we're all trying to have lead us into the world. That self-doubt that we talked about in the beginning, that's the programming that you get from all the adults that care about you so much. You did something wrong, you're bad, you're not enough, you didn't hit the standard here, you whatever. And a lot of parenting is judgment wrapped in caring, right? Caring wrapped in judgment. I don't know how you want to look at that, but
yeah.
So if you don't have to do that with your kids, they become these empowered creatures that have a sense of themselves. Like, my 17-year-old daughter, like, we always, I have like adults on my team saying like, I want to be like her when I grow up, because she does not take shit from, no, she does not give herself up for anybody. The minute somebody's like, make yourself less, she's like, go, like, I'll leave instead of doing that, you know? So I'd love my grandson to grow up with a sense of himself and the beauty of the gift that he is in the world, whatever that looks like, not from definition or here are the qualities or the characteristics that make you a good man, because good is also a judgment, my friend. Everything be a good guy or a good wife or a good mother, a good whatever, the rightness is actually what locks you up even more than the wrongness, because wrongness you want to get out of. The moment you're good at something, you won't go past it because you're like, I'm finally not wrong. But it's
Yeah.
also
And it also discourages you from making mistakes. And from my life, my experience, my mistakes have been my greatest lessons and have really pushed me to be a better man. All the mistakes that I've made.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, that is wonderful. And I think what resonates with what you said really about parenting, that I can reflect upon myself, is that a lot of times I was doing things not out of my joy, not out of my authentic self, but out of the judgment of my father. And there would be, it wouldn't even be things that would be restrictive. It would be things like that you wouldn't think that are like I don't know, negative, right? You wouldn't think it, but it is. Like when I was in high school and I played football, I had 4 sacks, and we were celebrating afterwards. And we were sitting there at the table, and the first thing my dad said is, I don't understand why you're not a starter. And my stepmother immediately went in. She's like, why can't you just enjoy what he did? You know? And then recently, when I did my aerial performance, I showed it to my dad, and he was like, oh, what's next? Cirque du Soleil? And I was like, oh, we're going back to that old pattern. But now I recognize it. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this for any vision that you have of me. I'm doing this for my self-fulfillment and my happiness. This
Yeah.
me being a man is not about pleasing you. It's about being the better person that I know that I can be.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Jack. And that is one of the I would call in the 5 elements that I mentioned is allowance. Like dad,
Mhm.
like my mom is my biggest fan internally, but out of her mouth verbally, like she's actually admitted to me she cannot like say it. Like she can't say I'm proud of you. I know she is, but like she can write it. That's what we found out. She's like, I'm really good at writing, but she can't express, right? So for the longest time, I held that of like, why won't she ever just say it, because I thought I needed it. But now I'm like, allowance for whoever she is. She's a compilation of everybody who raised her and the world and her experiences too. And if I just allowance for that. So dad, and like you said, it's not bad or wrong. Him saying, why aren't you a starter? For him, he's like, hey, I'm trying to tell you that I think you're good enough to start. And I'm frustrated that these people don't see that. I know what it is to be a parent of athletes. Oh my God. Right.
Yeah.
But as a child, as a young man who just had 4 sacks, oh my God. Right.
Yeah.
You're like flying high. And then dad's like, but you're still not a start. Like that's what you hear. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're both coming from great intentions.
Definitely.
But it's just totally like warped in what judgment does, which is toxicity. And then it creates separation. And you're like, whoa, I can't believe you just said that to me,
Mm-hmm.
And him going like, oh, wow, what's next? Cirque du Soleil,
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you're amazing, and you're like, Dad, I'm not doing it for that. Like, I'm doing it because it brings me joy. But he's trying to celebrate you because it's the way that he knows how to do that with the words he knows, So like going to that allowance place like you did and just be like, you know what, I hear you, thank you, and then still choose for you, which is kind of the tip of the iceberg of possibility.
Amazing. So one thing that I do with every guest is I mention one thing that I appreciate about them. And I've already said several things that I appreciate about you, because I do, and I could go on and on. We could have a whole podcast of appreciation for you. But one thing that I appreciate about you is that you're an alchemist.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, alchemy back in the day, back in the Middle Ages, was all about the science of turning coal into gold, turning objects that are worthless into something. And you do that real life with ideas. It's even more powerful than making gold. And so I really appreciate that. It's inspired me on my journey to, like I said, to even make this podcast, to do the things I do, branching out from just being a personal trainer and trying new things. And so that is what I find really inspirational about you. And I encourage people to seek you out, listen to you, get your books, go to your seminars, because you have so much wisdom and knowledge to give through all your experiences that everyone could benefit from it. And one thing that I always say to all my friends is that, you know, if you were to offer me money or the high quality of friends I have, I would take the high quality of friends I have because of just what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
You know, money is limited, but great people, they have unlimited powers, and you're one of those. And yeah, that's what I appreciate about you.
Thank you, Jack. That's so sweet and so vulnerable. And can I say something back? Because I just had this memory pop up of when we first met. And you know, like when you're first doing training stuff, there's like getting to know each other and all of that. But I remember the first time you had me stretch out, and I was laying on the mat and I kind of rolled over and I saw on the side of your wall where you have like the plug, right? But it's like has the cover on it, and you wrote future Tesla charger. And I was like, he's my guy. Because if you're looking, because you looking out at the future and just being willing to write something like that, it showed me that like you have those targets, you have those big dreams. And I truly believe that if you keep going, you'll have whatever it is you're asking for, whether you even desire a Tesla anymore. But I thought that, you know, and our asks change and all of that. But I was like, that, like, what if we walked around the world with being like, you know, knowing, because one of the ways to create that future is to own it now, like really now, you know, and what you're creating with your podcast, it's like you're stepping into owning it now. And there's nothing I'd rather get behind than people who are like, I'm having it and I'm going, and I'm like, yes, whatever I can do to contribute. So I'm just really proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And are you going to be doing any traveling soon? Any seminars upcoming?
Actually, I went low key for the end of the year, where I'm going to be all online, I think, until the end of the year. But sometimes I get wild hairs and jump on a plane. But no big travel for the rest of the year.
Okay.
We'll
Okay. Okay.
But I'm doing a 5 elements of intimacy class once a month.
Okay.
And so
How can we check that out?
Yeah, I'd love to invite you as my guest if you'd like to come.
I would love that.
Okay, it's Saturday the 22nd and 23rd. It's about 6-7 hours a day, like in those 2 days.
Okay.
There's a really big manual, and you dive in. It's so beautiful, and you get deep, and you explore things about you that you didn't know you would be able to uncover in 2 days, and you wake up Monday morning with a whole new world. So I'm starting to do one of those weekend classes every month starting this month. And then we're going to see where it goes, because I've been doing relationship coaching and, you know, body work and stuff like that for a while. But once exactly what you said at the beginning of the podcast, like once I dove in to really get present with me, I started realizing that everything goes back to that. Everything goes back to that light that you talked about when you felt lost, that you started to feel again. And I'm totally the person who was the cynic, like just a matter of 10 years ago, who was like, you know, and all that like self-love and, you know, like everything you've been looking for was inside all the time. Like, okay, Dorothy.
There is a lot of like toxic positivity out there too, which doesn't come from a genuine place, which is fear, you know? And so it's easy to like get caught up in that and confuse the two. Like when you see someone like bringing out like, you know, these like, you know, spiritual concepts, these self-empowerment concepts, to get them confused with the snake oil dealers out there and everywhere. So I can definitely see where the cynicism comes from out there, because there's a lot of toxic positivity out there.
We might have to do a whole nother episode on that, because I got a lot to say.
Oh, you've dealt with a lot of it.
Well, I thought I was my roles, right? So, and I know where you're trying to end this podcast, but you got me talking.
Go, keep going.
But people would, like most people, if you ask them, tell me about yourself. Most people are like, here's my job. Here's my relationship status. Here's who I'm responsible for. You know, like, so, you know, I'm a hairstylist. I have 4 kids. I'm married to this person. And, you know, they don't know who they are. They don't know their being. and the beauty of their being, which actually doesn't have a definition. So in order to communicate who I am, I tell you about my roles, and that's who I thought I was. So when people were like, you know, you need to get to know you and let that shine through, I would be like, I'm a hairstylist. Like, I thought I knew, you
Yeah.
know? And so getting to uncover and explore way beyond the definitions and actually, you know, get to know the beauty of your being is like something that, again, 10 years ago, I would have like probably turned my nose up at and been like, you know, that's for the airy fairies, you know, but my
Mm-hmm.
whole life changed. So, hey.
Yeah. And, just a personal testimony from the body energetic work that you've done with me. I think it was a few weeks ago, we did like a body scan on my hip and my back. And now it's almost 99% cured. I just had a very heavy deadlift today. And it looks like I'm on track to go back to nationals. And so that was a very
Awesome.
dark period of my life because, it's like I centered a lot of my identity on being a power lifter. And I had to learn that this wasn't all who I was.
Yeah.
But the body work, my rehab, and doing all that really helped it out. So I'm just saying, like, if you get an opportunity, do it, because it really definitely changed the trajectory of my injury. And, everything that you've offered me so far has been very, helpful and advantageous to, my growth, my personal.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
That,
yeah, yeah. And and I'm going to invite you and your whole family to come out to see my next aerial performance, which will be Holiday in the Park on the 25th or 21st of November. That's a Friday.
yeah,
And I'll give you all the details and stuff. I think I'm going to dress up as a Grinch. So
that's amazing. My grandson will love it. We'll absolutely be there.
awesome, awesome. I'd love to have you there. In closing, do you have anything that you would like to add? Do you have anything that you'd like to plug or anything like that?
No, I mean, if you want to check me out, you can go to sarahgrandinetti.com. And I think what I would leave you is what my tattoo says is why not you? So, you know, someone's going to be out there creating the dream life that you're dreaming of. Like, why not you? And it's just a matter of making the choices. Choice changed your life, not awareness. So a lot of people are out there doing self-help, looking to be self-aware of where they're limited. But if you don't make a different choice, you're on the same track. So why not you, baby? Start making
Yeah, and that's the thing that like going back to it. That's the thing you've taught me is, it's not only about having those ideas of self-belief, it's taking action in them. And that's what you taught me with Wonder Workouts is how you got the whole ball rolling and me being able to see the ins and outs of how you work and how you get stuff going. And like when things didn't work out, you were just instead of like, focusing on it, dwelling on it and being like, oh, you were like, okay, let's move on. We're going to have to do something else. And you just pivoted. And yeah, I think like, that has taught me so much in believing in myself and taking action on it.
awesome. How does it get better, my friend?
Yes, yes. So again, thank you for all your beauty, for all you do. Like I said, you're my dear friend, an inspiration to me, and you are a gift. And I'm definitely going to have you on again. So expect me to throw out another invitation, and we'll talk some more.
Awesome.
And we'll close it out. That's it for today's episode of The Other Side of Tough. I'm Jack Starr, reminding you that real strength is found on the other side. Catch you the next time. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.